Hi, I'm Michael Killen. In this show, you will have an opportunity to gain insights into the GOP's climate change strategy. Yes, the Republican Party's climate change strategy. George Shultz, working at the Hoover Institute at Stanford, has been working for several years developing recommendations for the new Congress and the new president with respect to how we should address climate change and the national energy policy. He has teamed up with Jim Baker, Paulson, and several other senior persons to make this recommendation to the rest of the GOP. I have invited Ripu Malhotra. He is an SRI fellow. He is also credited with developing in a symbolic way of thinking about national energy issues in a different environment, a mathematical and model environment, and to bring the topic back, the data back. I've invited him to help me discuss George Shultz's climate change strategy for the GOP. First of all, Ripu.
Thank you, Michael.
By the way, I tend to feel lucky to have you as a friend and a colleague. You are a good mate to have. I deal with the art, the feelings, and you take care of all the numbers for me, which I think is wonderful. So behind me, ladies and gentlemen, is a painting that I made. It's 15 feet by 6 foot. What it is my interpretation, with the help of Ripu, of George Shultz's recommendations for the Congress and for our president. And this painting will debut on June 23rd at the Silicon Valley Energy Summit at Stanford University. So, Ripu,
Hi, Michael.
Tell me, you of course know George Shultz.
I do.
And you told me the other day that a year or so ago, in front of an audience, he articulated his climate change strategy.
Yes.
What did you think of it?
Well, it has a lot of merit.
Yeah.
And I think there were some things that he was saying very clearly, which I know that only a person who is not actively seeking in a congressional seat could say things, because tax was a big part in there. He was saying that the debate about this, it's, climate change, it's a big risk. And if nothing else, then just for the sake of mitigating this risk, we need to take some actions. That was his starting point. He was not going to go into the debate of how much the sea levels are going to rise, or how much, or whether it's true. I know he accepts that part. It's a basic fact that greenhouse effect is real. The world has been getting warmer, and that it's going to have consequences, and we don't know in which exactly how bad or how severe and where and all that. But just looking at the risks, both in terms of the national energy security and the devastation to the population, or the effects to the population as overall, it's worth taking actions.
Okay. And you said he's made a suggestion, or one element of his strategy is a tax.
A tax on carbon.
Yes.
So that if you do that, you can then generate some revenues. And also, what the tax does is it raises the cost, and therefore provides incentive for the carbon-free sources of energy to compete a little better. And the question was, he doesn't want that carbon tax, that is revenue that's generated over there, to be used by the government, because again, you don't want government to grow any bigger. At least if you're a Republican, you don't want that at all. He says it should be given back to the people. So whatever you generate, you put it back to the people.
So let me ask, is that really a tax? If I borrow money from you and then I give it back to you.
What have you done?
Yeah, it's a
Well,
wash.
because what it has done is, in the meantime, the carbon sources of energy. So when I, as a user, go to buy my energy, I will like to buy the things that is the most cost effective, and the carbon intensive sources of energy are going to be more expensive in that scenario. Now we have not decided as to how much the tax could be. Maybe his articulation of the plan may say that. I don't recall that number, what he was using, but I can say that if you look at what carbon is really selling for in many, like the cap and trade markets here and in Europe, and they're high and low and they bounce around, but around $10 a ton.
$10 a ton, that would be a tax. So if I have a plant, I'm making steel or concrete, or maybe I'm making electricity.
Okay.
And if my team has made the measurements, which are often checked by the government, and we're putting out 30 tons of carbon dioxide every day, then
your cost will go up by 30 times 10, that's $300.
it doesn't seem like a lot of money.
No, not a whole lot. But 100 tons, I think you're going to be putting out a lot more tons.
A lot more.
I think most of the companies,
Yeah.
I mean, the ones in the energy sector, we're talking 5.5 billion tons of CO2 emitted in the U.S. every year. 5.5 billion tons. If I use $10 a ton again, so the potential to generate 55 billion. 55 billion on the U.S. Treasury is not a lot of money. It's not a very large sum of money. So maybe we will want to tax at $20 or $30. I don't know. That's to be. I just wanted to give you 100. But if we went that way, so we have generated 55 billion. It's nothing to sneeze at. And let's say you, as Secretary Schultz has proposed, that this money be distributed back to the people. So that helps them offset their energy costs, because we don't want to aggravate. Energy is very important for everybody's living. And so they will get a rebate about $175 per person per year.
And if the government sets a higher tax rate on the carbon,
then the rebate would be higher.
We could get 5,000.
Well, yeah. Depends on what level you want to use the tax at, right?
Okay, so I'd like to paraphrase you for a minute. If I run a company and my company is emitting a considerable amount of carbon, and I find now I have to pay a tax on it. So the method I'm using to manufacture or do whatever I'm doing now is a little less competitive to maybe some other approach.
Correct.
So I would start thinking about how I can get the work done, get the energy I need without using sources of fuel that are polluting.
Or use less, increase your efficiency.
Oh yes, efficiency.
Efficiency improvements get a big boost in this.
Yeah.
So as a manufacturer, you would like to use all the efficiency measures that are available to you and bring down your emissions cost, and therefore the cost of your goods and services that you are providing, so that you can be more competitive in the market. So that's a very strong driving force.
Yes. So a tax will really help American companies become stronger, because we think, when we have to think, we find solutions that usually make us a lot stronger. You mentioned, and this is a tangent, energy efficiency. And I think it was you thought you heard that the Trump administration wants to do away with supporting Energy Star program, which is a program I use. I'm not exactly concerned with pennies and quarters, but I buy a new refrigerator, buy a new washer, dryer. I'm always buying the energy starved, because I value reducing my energy costs, and I especially value not putting out more emissions into the atmosphere than I have to, or whatever.
Right.
Is that true, that the administration is backing away from, or we still?
That's what I heard. That was a little news item, a clip that I happened to hear. I haven't seen it in print or anything, but I did hear that as I was driving.
Okay, and then I want to share, and like you, I get to talk to a lot of people, policymakers in some cases, like Dave Jones, who is the California Energy Commissioner. I was talking to him the other day, and he said to me something I found interesting. He has told all the insurance companies in the state of California, if you are investing in coal stocks that are based on the excavation and the processing of coal, he wants them to divest. Divest because he envisions the climate change, sea level rise, hurricanes, droughts, and things. Changing weather patterns are going to be more violent, severe, and frequent, and that could place great demands on the insurance companies to pay for the damages. And with the coal stocks and maybe some other fossil fuel stocks going down, it threatens the ability of the insurance companies to pay up. Is that something that you've come across?
No, I have not. I have not.
Okay.
I know that it's a drive to do that, but I thought you were going to take it in a different direction, because on the one hand, we are trying to resurrect the coal jobs, increase because that's the big source of energy in the U.S. is the fossil energy sector, and the new administration would really like to increase, because once we have energy, which is the ultimate commodity, that really helps build a stronger industry. But at the same time, it really threatens, through climate change, our own energy security, stability, and a lot of other factors. And if the hurricanes are getting more intense and the insurance companies cannot insure, then it's a double-edged sword.
Okay. Now, you talked about some numbers about the price of a ton of carbon, billions of carbon, billions of tons. But you were just in St. Louis, I think.
Yes.
And the floods hit that city. And I think they're still hitting that city.
Yes. I was in the town of Eureka, where my daughter lives, and I'm seeing the pictures of that. And I saw the inn that, the hotel that we were staying at, not far from there, at an intersection of two major freeways, US 44 and 141, and they're all underwater.
Yeah. So, and you do the numbers better than me. The collection of attacks compared to a major storm. Couldn't we have storms that are $500 billion?
Well, they can be in the several $billion very easily, and tens of billions of dollars. Yes.
Okay.
How much was Sandy?
I forget.
Well,
A lot of money.
A lot of money. I think it was about 20 billion.
Yeah.
I'm not sure, but which was a large number.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the frequency is, I mean, I keep hearing from people in St. Louis, people who, kind of were not necessarily believers in climate change and all that, but they are seeing, wait a minute, 5 years ago or 3 years ago, we had this once in a century or once in a decade storm, and here it is again. Here it is again.
Yeah. I was wondering, can we get up for a minute and go by the painting?
Sure.
And so I have the task of interpreting George Shultz's GOP
Yeah.
plan, strategy on canvas, And I do want to acknowledge I have bounced every idea off of you. And it seems to me we're all concerned about this greenhouse gas monster.
Yeah.
And how big is it?
So the CO2 that's in the air at the moment is 3.2 trillion. Trillion with a T.
Tons.
Tons.
Of
trillion tons of CO2. Carbon dioxide. There's another way of representing this when people talk about these global concentrations is in tons of carbon. But that's taking just the weight of carbon in carbon dioxide, and there's a factor of 3.7 lurking in there, causes confusion. In our discussion, let's stick with the weight of CO2.
CO2.
So 3.2 trillion tons, or if I'm going to be using billion tons, which I call GT that I have annotated here, that's gigatons, metric tons.
Okay.
So 3,200 gigatons of CO2 is already there in the air.
How much are we feeding it?
We are feeding it from energy use, we are feeding it about 35 billion tons.
Okay.
So it's about 1% of them.
Okay. And the people who have really studied, the scientists, government officials, and businesses, and they have come to the conclusion a long time ago, this is already too big of a monster. I mean, it's really going to hurt us, and we don't want to feed it anymore. So my thinking, George's tax is the creation of a wall, not the wall between Mexico and the United States, which will never be built. It is a symbolic articulation, and this wall makes it difficult for companies, all types of companies that are excavating oil, gas, coal, to get their products over this wall to the marketplace.
Correct.
And when they do, they feed the monster. So here's a little oil, here's a little gas, here's some more gas. And yes, the use of gas is just booming, I believe. And some people even think gas is clean. You know, you wouldn't want to breathe the burning of that stuff. Okay, it's quite dirty. And here's somebody in one of those industries who's just exhausted and wiped out. And what George wants to see happen, he wants to see the White House and Congress to team up together to agree to a tax on carbon. And California and about 6, 7 other states around here, I think, and other countries, they already have a cap-and-trade tax and various other kinds.
Cap-and-trade is not a tax. So can't use that word. That 3-letter word is an anathema.
Okay, thank you. So George wants Congress to team up with the White House. And right now, you know, everybody says, you know, well, the Democrats say Trump is a denier of climate change, and in the 4 years that are going to pass, you know, we're really going to go down in the hole. But, you know, Trump only says that. There is no such thing because he's appealing to his base. And actually today, he was at an event and he said, it's so hot in this room, I just may start believing in climate change. The odds are Trump, because his base is going to realize he sold them a bill of goods on a lot of things. They'll probably get disenchanted. And when they get disenchanted, Trump will probably become a believer in climate change just to get some of the Democrats' vote. Now, over here, you mentioned energy efficiency. And the state of California and some other states and even the United States believes that we want to take all the oil we're going to use, all the sun-based renewable energies, nuclear, maybe not California, and we want to feed them into this device, and this is the energy efficiency device. And when we use energy efficiency approaches and systems, out of it comes money. Money.
Yeah.
Companies save money. You save money in your house. I save money. Out of the other approach comes power. And power, for example, to create electricity, and this is a little, okay, George strategy is to throw a lifesaver to all the 98 or so nuclear power plants in the United States. You know, keep them safe. You keep getting energy out of them, because the energy that comes out of it does not pollute.
No.
Not pollute.
And it's a lot of energy that comes out of it.
Oh, yeah. What percentage in the United States? 20%?
Electricity. Yeah.
Electricity.
Yeah.
20% of our electricity comes from it? I don't know.
Something like that, yeah.
I could ask you a million questions. You get most of them.
Yeah, no, electricity-wise, if you're just looking at the kilowatt hours or something, yes, about 20% number is a good one. It may have dropped a little bit, so I'm not 100% sure about that. Haven't checked last year's numbers.
Okay, so George wants to do what the Citizen Climate lobbying group is doing. They're lobbying for a tax on carbon. He wants a significant investment in energy efficiency, and he wants to protect the existing nuclear power plants until we're ready to move on to something else.
Yeah, because maybe, like, you know, it makes no sense to turn a good, clean energy source off.
Yeah.
Because what are you going to do with it? Well, people are going to demand that electricity. We have that need to run our homes and factories and everything. You know, we use lots of power.
Yes.
And that energy has to come from somewhere.
Yes.
And if we turn this off, like Japan did, or Germany did, had to put up a whole bunch of other fossil-fired thing to compensate also.
Yes.
So yes, although they have gone down in CO2, they could have avoided a whole lot more. But for so it makes little sense to just drive them off.
All right. And so George has a second nuclear component to his recommendation, and that is a considerable investment in the next generation of nuclear energy plants, which the scientists have been able now to design them so they can't blow up, they can't sprue radioactive, they can't make a lot of waste. And I'll just start a description of how one of these plants works. I think they put a chemical called thorium, maybe some other chemicals, in here, and it's radioactive, and it heats up, and it's very hot, and it tends to heat water, which creates steam, and the steam makes turbines spin, okay? So the thorium circulates around like this, you know, keeps circulating around and making steam. I haven't shown the process of making the steam. And it's fail-safe. You don't have to worry about...
Thorium is dissolved in a molten salt.
Molten salt, which can be...
And that salt, because has a very high boiling point, it means it can go to high temperatures.
500?
Yeah, without any vapor pressure. So, you know, when you heat water up, when you try to cool a reactor with water, you will build up a lot of pressure. This has no pressure built up.
And if by some chance this gets really hot, what happens is they have a mechanism, it's symbolic now, the pipes get so hot down here that they melt, and everything just pours out and the system shuts down.
Yeah, they don't have the whole pipe working, but they have a deliberate plug in there so that that plug melts. And now the liquid, the salt that is molten in there and has dissolved your fuel, when it's in that compact, that's when it is critical. But when it falls out, it spreads out, it is no longer critical because it is spread very thinly, and so the neutrons that are emitting are not breeding and they are not carrying on the nuclear reaction anymore. So that's why it is fail-safe. Walk away safe because work is done by gravity.
Okay, we're running out of time now. And this I think of as the Social Security, and that's the Treasury. The tax money is collected by the Treasury, and then it's distributed out to the people, everyone who has the Social Security.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is my interpretation, and I really appreciate all the help you always give me. This painting debuts again on June 23rd at Stanford's Silicon Valley Energy Summit,
Uh-huh.
and I'm very pleased about that. And then I want to ask you, you have an event coming up.
Yeah.
What, in Palo Alto?
Yes.
What is it?
I'm calling it this time, the book was A Cubic Mile of Oil that my co-authors and we wrote. That was describing the energy situation as it exists. Now my talk is going to be focusing on replacing cubic miles of oil. And yes, I'll be talking a lot about the thorium reactors as well as nuclear and trying to address concerns that people have.
Yeah, I would say for anybody studying energy, sustainability, people in the governments, community governments, etc., this is a truly wonderful book to get not only the numbers, but to new ways of thinking about energy and the requirements. And
If I may, the event is on May 18th,
May 18th.
Thursday. That's at 5:30 or 6 o'clock, 5:30. Check the website for Café Scientifique.
Say that again, Cafe?
Café Scientifique in Silicon Valley.
Okay.
So it's at the Hana House. So Hana House website also has it.
All right.
And the event they actually record and they live stream it on Facebook as well as post it online later.
Okay. I'd like to make one more announcement. We are taping in a PEG TV station, public education, government TV station. There's about 3,000 of them in the United States. And I'm pleased that about 30 of them right now can access this show.
Great.
3 different words, Vimeo and PEG Media and TelView Connect. Any one of the 3,000 stations, just go on to one of these 3 television show exchange, take the show down. And Ripu, good man, thank you.
Thank you, Michael, for
Thank you
having
again.
me. Yes, I really enjoyed.
And so, PEG Media, TelView Connect, or Vimeo are 3 places where TV stations around the country can gain access to shows like this one. Again, I'm Michael Killen. Hope I see you at the Silicon Valley Energy Summit 2017. That is where my new painting will be displayed. I am Michael Killen.